It's Bridgett
and Colleen
from Hot Flashes Cool Topics, and today we're going to do our very first roundtable. So we have some wonderful people with us today to share that. We're going to be talking about empty nesting at different phases of life. So we'll just go ahead, Colleen.
Well, we wanted to start doing the roundtables because a lot of our listeners were really wanting more of a conversation about certain topics. They wish they could call in. They wish they could get other opinions brought into the conversation. So we thought, why not get some of our friends who are going through the experience at different stages and have a conversation, and hopefully it will resonate with some people. You know, you may have some more thoughts that you want to add. Feel free to do so below in the notes. And let's get started. So this is our friend Karen.
Hey, and I'm a baby nester where I have 2 kids. The oldest one has gone to college, and the other one is about to leave for college. And they're exactly 4 years apart. So once the youngest leaves, the other one will be graduating and going off to the workforce.
Did you do that on purpose? Like, did you want 4 years between them, or is that just how life worked out?
It's sort of just how life worked out. And if I could do it again, I would have made sure they were 3 years apart, because I didn't know that you would get a discount on college. Remember
that. Look at that.
And at the same time, yeah.
Okay, what about you, Jeanne?
Well, I have 2 girls. One is married now with a granddaughter, and the other one is single. And I actually got divorced when my youngest was in college. And so that was a unique experience, because not only was I an empty nester, but I had nobody in the house. And so I'd love to talk about that as well.
Jeanne is probably going to be on several times because she's had career changes. She's gone through the dating world after 40. So you have a lot to share.
That's a show in itself.
So she might be a regular guest. Actually, everyone might be.
Yeah.
Next.
Oh, and Nancy. Yes, Nancy.
I was like throwing it over to Bridgett.
Okay.
And Nancy.
Hello, my name is Nancy, and I have 2 sons, and I'm really unique here. I'm sure I'm the oldest, because I've been an empty nester for going on 20 years, close to that. Not quite 20 years. So,
Oh, we want to hear about all the fun things you have done.
Right.
Yes.
Maybe I'm kind of unique because, and I have 2 boys that are like a year apart. So that has its own issues, and then we also have 2 older stepchildren. So I think that I don't know if I'm unique or not, but I don't think so. I think there are other people that feel like this. When my kids left, and they left, like one left, and then the other one left like a year later. So I was hit with, really quickly. But at the same time, I had a real stressful job, which I liked, but I was spending 12 hours a day, away from home. It was so I didn't have a problem like with keeping busy. I would say when the youngest left really quickly after the first, then it kind of hit me, but it hit me in kind of a different way. I mean, you miss your kids, but I just found like it totally rearranged our coupledom, because you're always like worried about the kids, and all your conversations are about children, so you have to kind of get acquainted with your spouse again. Like we found ourselves like talking to our cat. And,
Speaking of which, this is actually my kitchen.
Cat whisperer.
And my dog and my cat will be part.
Yes.
They're also guests.
Yes, Ollie and Horace.
They
are
go
also
through empty
here.
nest
Yes.
too. We've talked about how the pets
It
in the
does
house.
affect your
That
pet.
it does affect the pets.
Changes.
So anyway, but I feel like I adjusted, very well, and we immediately, because we had never actually been without kids since the day we got married, because kids. So we found ourselves like really having a great time, and we started traveling, we started cooking together. I mean, it was just, it's continued even after all this time. It's like, everyone has their ups and downs and life's challenges, but overall, I would say I'm happier than I've ever been, and I felt that way.
That is why she was invited on.
And I felt that way pretty quickly when they left. I thought, wow, I miss them. And of course, they do come back. They bounce back a couple times. But now I've been without kids totally, last 10 years or so. But the other great thing about, I think, is your kids come back to you. My mom always told me she had 5 kids. She said, oh, they'll go away, but they're going to come back to you. And you see them, you don't see them it's not in the same way. I mean, you have to respect their boundaries and they have to respect, because it's different.
Do you
Yes, that was the hardest lesson.
problem.
Yeah, when
Women
they have
have.
children,
Oh, yes.
really the boundary thing.
Yeah, because I have a 4-year-old granddaughter.
Jeanne looks like she wants to interject here.
Yeah.
I think if they come back to my house, not that it's my house, my rules, but they can't do or act or say anything that's contrary to my lifestyle. Now, what that would be, I don't know offhand, but they're coming into my realm.
Mm-hmm.
And I welcome them and I love them and they're so welcome. But for example, and they wouldn't do this, but if the youngest wanted to have a whole bunch of kids over and I came home and there are a whole bunch of kids all over this age, no, you can't. You can't do that. You've got to ask me. So I still control my house. That
Did your
makes sense.
kids come back at all after they left for college?
They both came back for a little bit, trying to get themselves together before they started on their careers and stuff. Yeah, they did. And to be truthful, that was hard. Because by that point, you're kind of used to your own schedule and your routine and make or not make dinner and so forth. And they come home and they think it's the same thing. You know, where's dinner, Mom? And, you know, what's going on here? What are we having for breakfast? And it's like, whoa, you know.
I don't know what you're having
Yeah,
for
well,
breakfast.
help us out.
I already
Yeah.
ate 2 hours ago. I don't know what you're having for breakfast.
Yeah.
Well, talking about kids coming back, my oldest is about to graduate college and she's worried that she'd be a failure if she came back home and worked. And I'm like, you wouldn't be a failure, you'd be European.
Yes, that's what they do.
We're the only country that is like, no, you have to have an immediate go away. And if you leave school, of course the parents have to put up the money for that first apartment, the first vacuum cleaner, because they aren't making money while they're in college
Right.
to that extent.
Well, to that effect, I think it's really important too to not, I mean, at any time in your life with kids, but not compare yourself to other people and their kids.
Yes.
Mhm.
You know, some other kids could go to school, know exactly what they want to be, and got a job right out of school, and they're making gobs of money, and your child's sitting at home. That doesn't mean they're a failure. That doesn't mean they did anything
Exactly.
wrong.
Exactly.
And we've talked about that. Even Karen and I were talking about this the other day, that they're not supposed to have their dream job at this point.
Oh, right.
They're
No.
kids.
I now have my dream job.
Right? It only took 50 some odd years.
Yes.
But you know, it's okay for them to try different things and fail and try again. And if
Yeah.
they need to come home,
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
as
Yeah.
we've talked about,
Yeah,
I
I've
have
said
the
it, yeah.
revolving door situation where my oldest has graduated college but is now in grad school, and she just got engaged and she's working full time, so they are living in my house and trying to save up money for a wedding and all that stuff. Well, not for the wedding, for after the wedding. And it's a challenge because they are coming back, but you're not coming back as a child who was in high school.
Right.
You're coming back as an adult who lived on their own for 4 years. So
Right.
the boundaries do have to shift a little bit. And I find myself sometimes going, today is over, I'm gonna close my door. That's my hint to, I'm done. Like, I don't wanna sit here and watch movies or do that. I just want the day to be over. And I need my space.
Yep.
Oh, I do that all day long.
Yeah.
Bridgett, what was your position with your kids? What were
Well,
they?
so now they are both out of the house. So they are both far away.
I was gonna say, you're
Yes.
kind of the far away
And I
parent.
miss them terribly. My son graduated a few years ago, and he did stay at home for about a year, just kind of like yours did, trying to figure out what to do with his life and working part-time, you know, contributing. And then some things, you know, when you were talking about them, those kind of came in to play. Like, I still would, if they went out, I still wanted to know when they got home. But when he was at college, I didn't
Right.
know when he was getting home. But did he ever come home? Is he home? But you know, he was 20-something years old, so I really didn't have a say. I kind of had a say because I was providing room and board, but that didn't happen. But then he moved to California, so now he's really far away, and that's really hard. And then my daughter, pretty much when she graduated, immediately moved, and she's about 7 hours away from me. And I miss them terribly. Neither of them are big into FaceTiming with me, but we do talk regularly on the phone. And I have said it before in our podcast that I would definitely, if they needed I would bring them back. Yeah, if something
course.
happened, they're my family,
right.
and I would bring them back at home. So, there is that. I'm in the phase where I get sad sometimes because I really miss them. And like Christmas, I was so happy they were here. But then I took one to the airport one day and one the next day. And it's just like, I just got so choked up and I'm in the car crying and, and I think we've said on our podcast too that we've heard from different people just to have something to look forward to.
Right.
So
I
I'm
was
doing
doing
all
that.
these, and I keep myself busy. I'm not working outside of the home anymore. I'm a former teacher and I keep myself busy, so that's something we'll touch on a little bit too. But I've planned some travel, so that things like that keep me going. But I probably sound like the saddest person.
No,
But and I'm not. I'm really not. But
It's
I
just the
do
phases
enjoy.
that you go
I think
through.
maybe I appreciate seeing them when I see them more because I don't get to see them all the time.
Right.
So.
Right.
So.
Well, we had a coach on recently, an
Christine,
empty nest coach,
yeah.
Christine, who really talked about, you can get in your head very easily and kind of get stuck there. And it's okay to feel happy and sad at the same time. And it's okay to go through those periods, but be gentle with yourself. Don't judge yourself for being sad about them. And sometimes, and what was also an interesting conversation, is sometimes one spouse will be happy that the children are moving
Right.
and one spouse won't. So you kind of have to be considerate to both their feelings as well. But how do you feel about it? Like, what are you nervous about? Because I remember when I was about to start, a friend of mine gave me a very good suggestion: have something to look forward to. Because when you drop them off, don't do the let me just get them into school and get them all set and then I'll worry about myself.
Right.
No, because that's when you just come crashing down.
Right.
So are you trying to do anything to prepare yourself for this big change?
Yeah, I want to cry my way through southern Italy. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that would be just perfect. But I
Yes.
think what Bridgett was saying, one of the things that gets me, and it's just the way my mind is, and other people's might be, is it's also about the quickness of time. So when I see my kids growing up, or I only see them once in a while, it's all about morality. Nope, mortality.
I knew where she was going with that.
She really meant that.
I know.
Where you're going with that one.
Freudian slip, but it really is about, wow, how quick that went and how quick this is going, and like that part. But I had already foreseen what was going to happen. The neighborhood we live in is very idyllic and walkable and community oriented. So we moved here a few years ago in anticipation of, especially me being an empty nester and having community around. But I think we're going to take the advice that you said. We're going to plan a trip, even if it's a short
It could be
one.
local where you just drive
Yeah.
somewhere, but have something, because when you walk in that house, it's just a bizarre feeling to know that that part of your life is now changed.
over.
That door
Yeah.
is closed. And even when they come back different because they've had experiences that you knew nothing about.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you knew everything when they lived at home, or sometimes too much.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, they're going to have all these experiences, they're going to grow, they're going to change, and they're going to come back a little bit different each time.
So when my oldest left for college, that was the hard one for me. I mean, I thought I would fall apart, blah, blah, blah. So I decided I needed to do something for me. I hadn't worked in probably 7 or 8 years. And I thought, you know what? I need to work. I mean, I just felt, I played a lot of tennis, that was all great and fine, but I needed something more. So I went to a company that I knew about that did the same thing that I had done for many years. And I went in there and I got a job. And it was just a part-time job, but it kept me busy. Now I just had one at home, but that was enough to be involved in her life and for me to do my thing. And that was perfect. And that really helped me because I was working on me. And so that helped me a lot.
Yeah.
However, when the youngest one went off to college, I didn't have much of a problem. I really didn't. I kind of was doing my own thing with my job and so forth and so on. And but when I went through my divorce, so my youngest was going to start her senior year of college. And I won't go into all the details, it's kind of ugly, but he refused to pay her last year's tuition out of state. She went to IU. And all of a sudden I realized, not only do I not have my kids here, I don't have anyone here. So there was no one to call in and say, hey, can you pick up the milk on the way home?
Right.
Or so-and-so's taking this class, what do you think? Is that a good one? Or let's talk about vacation next year. I mean, nothing. There was no one to discuss anything with. It was just me and my house. Mm-hmm. So I put a plan in place. I was pretty, people don't recognize me now as I was then, because it was pretty devastating to me. So I put a plan that I wanted to be out of that house in 1 year. And it was, we'd been in the house 20 years. It was my security blanket. I loved it. I stayed there. But I knew for me, I had to get out. So I decided to pick a neighborhood that was social, because I'm very social. And I didn't want to be a house in a subdivision and just sit. Mm-hmm. So did it all, made the move here as I planned, and it's turned out to be the best thing ever. But I had to plan and force myself to do everything. Right. I couldn't just sit and wait for it to come or wait for my mood to change. I had to instigate the whole thing.
Right.
And yeah, it's great. Life is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The plans help.
How did you find, not only, it's hard enough for us to have to share them with school, mm-hmm. and then they come home for the holidays, but now you have to share them with someone else over the holidays. Mm-hmm. Do you see them even less?
He doesn't see them.
Okay, never mind.
That happens a lot. But like even so, you don't have to. You said, do you have children that are married?
Yeah.
One's
Do you
One's
have to? How is that sharing a child with
in-laws?
In-laws, yeah. I know.
Well,
yeah.
okay, so I trained my daughter right. She's a girl, obviously, and she told her husband that she would marry him, but she would never ever leave her mom alone on Christmas.
Wow, good daughter.
And so
Maggie, did you hear that?
So she, so far, knock wood, has never been with the in-laws at Christmas. She has said, no, I'm with my mom. And then they go after, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
But
like
even
this whole
that,
sharing thing.
I know.
Well,
used to
so
know.
even that though, let's say with the in-laws that she went to the in-laws, if you had a person that you loved or got along with,
Right.
and so you have a quiet, cozy Christmas
Right.
by yourself and knowing you're celebrating before or after, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But as it is right now, be me in the fireplace, I guess.
Yeah, I see that coming right now. That hasn't had to happen yet. And I see that coming and I'm like, oh, and I just get in my head too much. I'm like thinking, I'm so glad this Christmas that they're with me and I don't have to, except for I have to share them with my in-laws that come to visit. And I'm a little selfish about that. Like part of me is like, yeah, you can see them, but okay, don't stay too long because this is my time with my kids. And so I'm a little selfish about that, and I know that.
I don't think that's selfish.
it-
You have a
a finite amount of
time, and you want to
Yeah.
spend as much time as possible with
And see them, and it seems like that last leg of their visit is always, we've got people coming in or they're trying to squeeze in as much as they can. And so, yeah, I gotta get out of my head about that. So, that's kind of a problem.
Don't create problems
Yes.
that don't exist.
Yeah.
And my mom used to say, don't borrow trouble.
Yeah, that's
You
good.
know,
That's good.
like-
Very good. Yeah.
Exactly.
You
I
told me
see
that
that
not
now,
too long
don't
ago.
Look at
You're
y'all.
welcome.
Did you
Wow.
know my mom? Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Well, I was asked Karen, your younger daughter is dating someone. Your
Mhm.
older daughter did not when she left for college, or was she doing?
No, she wasn't.
How has that experience been different for you?
Well, it's interesting because with the younger daughter, has a pretty steady boyfriend, and fortunately, we like him.
Which is
Would
important.
we have rather them met at 27? Yes, but that's not everyone's story, so that's fine. But because he lives many states away in the north, and she was planning to go to the north for college anyway, we're seeing a greater attachment happening in the snowy areas, which I'm not fond of. I told my husband that we could probably get an apartment up there. He thinks that's too much, but he's the sensitive one. Like, he will be the one crying.
Oh,
I'll be trying to distract myself and,
Setting up
writing.
her dorm and doing all that
Yes,
stuff.
yes. So that stuff, I really do get excited for seeing their future and what they're doing, and that is sort of a defense mechanism as well as a way to cope.
But you're aware of that. You know that that's how you're going to cope. It's not like you don't know that that's masking the just need to get through this. And
Yeah, I can see it as a positive and a weakness. But yeah, with the yours had a steady boyfriend too.
yes, and that was that was a unique experience because she didn't like the school. She went further away, several states away, and she wasn't happy. But she wasn't happy just because he was far away. She also didn't end up liking the school. So that was kind of a different situation. Do I think maybe she would have given it more time, more of a chance? Probably. But then she got mono and she had to come home, so that's another story. It's hard when they have a person that they want to be with all the time, and then you're like, yeah, but I only have a finite amount of time too.
Yes.
Luckily, I adore him, so,
Right.
and, he's wonderful with her, so I'm very grateful for that. But I do kind of enjoy the fact that my younger daughter, who will be a senior, I kind of get all her time. She's very close with her dad, so,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard when she graduates college because, at least when they go to college, you know where they are. You know what I mean? You know where they're going, and you know they're going to be in classes. But when they graduate college and they're out in the world, and you don't know what's happening, that's frightening to me. It really is.
You do have them on Find My Friends, don't you?
She stalks them.
I think.
have.
Oh, go ahead.
We have that too, mainly because we have daughters.
Yes,
And
that is true too.
we know, a lot of things that have been going on in the world, and we let them do what they want to do.
Right.
The older one, we don't care if she's out all night or she does this or she does that. It's only if we don't hear from her
Right.
when we're expected to hear from her that. Now later, I don't think it'll be a problem once they're set up with their own spouses or partners or
When they
or
have
whatever.
a partner, you have this false sense of security. Like they're not alone; they're with someone.
Right.
So there's someone protecting them if you can't protect them.
So what is the issue you think about having them alone, let's say living in Minneapolis?
Maybe because I have daughters. I mean, you have
But I do
daughters.
it for both of them. I do. I have a son and a daughter, and I it's like, gosh, I've got to quit doing that. But I think about like, okay, I'm going to get here on this day. And then like when I get there, I'm happy. Like I had 4 whole days, and then
Right.
it's like each day, oh, I only have 3 more days.
Yeah.
And so I need to quit doing that and live in the moment. But I just, you just worry about your children's safety.
It's
I don't
the
think
world
if it's
is so
well,
crazy.
no,
and that's why I
right now.
do it, is for their safety.
I agree,
Yeah.
but this is just me talking. I totally agree. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I'm all about that. But you can't, just like when they were little, when you were their protector
Right,
and you made sure don't run
Right.
across the street, you can't do that. They're at an age now. You
Yeah.
can't do that. You have to let go and see what happens.
Oh,
And you can call them, and you can have a rule that if I call you, you've got 24 hours, to call me back or whatever.
See, within 2 seconds, if they don't call me back.
See, I
I
think that's
don't do that.
No,
I think
don't
they
do
need
that.
I think
At
they
least
need their
text
freedom.
me
I
and
think
just
they
say
need
you're
their
on
They
freedom.
do. Like yesterday, my son had a surfing lesson, and I just wanted to make sure that, it's a surfing lesson. He's in the ocean, and I just was like, okay, I can tell. He told me he's going to a surfing lesson. He's at Santa Monica Beach. Okay, and then later, hey, I wonder if he's done with the surfing lesson. Okay, he's back at his apartment. Okay, that's good. Just kind of safety. But and with my daughter, I don't do it every day. But like if I know that she's going to see her friends in Atlanta, and I know that this single girl by herself
Totally.
is driving to Atlanta, and I'm like, okay, is she making it back? Or if the weather's bad, if whatever,
What if,
Okay,
what
she's
if?
yeah.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
just a touch base.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
That's
That's
just a touch
stalking
That's
them.
normal. That's
I'm not
a touch
stalking
base.
them.
It's just knowing that they're safe. It's a safety.
It's a safety issue to me.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I, as some people know, was involved in a murder trial of where someone did get killed. So from that day forth, I will know where my girls are.
She wasn't
Because
really
it's-
involved.
She
She
wasn't
wasn't.
in
I did the murder.
Okay, so I'm playing devil's advocate here. This might not be
No,
my
that's fine.
opinion. I'm playing devil's
No,
advocate.
that's wonderful.
So if you're miles away,
Mhm.
what can you do to protect them?
You can call the police, say this is where the phone was
Yeah.
last pinged, and we haven't been in contact with her.
But what if she's just not calling you back?
Well, she wouldn't do that because
Yeah, I think it's by personality. So
Right.
she would call
Okay.
back. So it would only be if she didn't call back and there was anything like that. But then again, the other day she sent us an email saying I've lost my phone, and I go, it's in your apartment. You know, that was very handy.
Yeah.
But I think it really is only for the sake of being able to say this person is young. Sometimes they're reckless with their behavior or trusting, and having just a backup for that I might never have to use is
I hear ya.
fine.
No,
Yeah.
I hear you.
it really is a safety.
I
Even if, for example, if I called one of my daughters and they were out, if they just texted me, I'm busy, I'll call you later, I know you're okay. You know, that's fine. Just text me and let me know you're okay. It's not like I need to know what you're doing every month. And sometimes I don't want to know what they're
Right.
doing every day. But if I'm not hearing from you and I know you're out and about, just let me know you're okay.
So it's interesting. I was accused of being a mama bear when my kids were little. I mean, like to my detriment.
They
I'm
call
like,
it helicopter
oh,
parent.
yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, really? I'm that bad. But I
I
would.
was never accused of that.
Me either.
I'm sure I was.
Kids were like,
Sure, I don't think
was.
it's bad or good. I just
Yeah,
never,
yeah.
I never was like.
I was, and I was there to help pave the way for them and everything else. So it's really interesting now.
That you're,
I let them go. Now, not to say if they're
How
not.
did you switch that? How did you flip that
I
switch?
went through really a lot of changes in my life, and a lot of reconciling within myself and what do I need. And when it comes down to it, I'm alone in this world, and I've got kids and I love them, and if they're with me, that's fabulous. But they've got their own thing to
Yeah,
do.
right.
They've got
They
their own
do.
adventures and their own life, and I am not going to depend on them. And I didn't need to know what was going on. Certainly if they travel, we have a rule that, you know, you check in before and you check in after, so, you know, we know we're okay, and certainly I can call them anytime. But I let them lead their life.
I think that's a different thing to what I'm talking about, because I let the kids do what they want. Sadly, they tell me what they do.
Yeah, that's
Sometimes you have to
They tell
teach your
me
brain
everything.
later.
Right.
Oh, mine don't.
But I don't help with homework. We don't go to their events even. We don't volunteer at their thing. We don't, you know, most of the time we do not know what's going on.
Are you
and
talking about
we're
high
the
school
parent.
now?
No, both. College,
Oh,
high
I never got
school.
involved in college yet.
No, high school. We don't we don't do anything at high school either, unless the kid wants us to, and we ask her, you want us to show up? Like we asked her this weekend, she said nope, and we said cool. So,
But see, I'd be there. I would be the mom that was
Oh,
there.
I did all the things.
she said I'd be the only
I
mother
did.
there, so I'm like, well, I don't want to make you feel
Uncomfortable,
uncomfortable, so I won't
Yeah.
go to that. But I think that it could be what we're growing up with and some of the things we're hearing that could make some people feel more comfortable having a just, there you are, I haven't heard from you in 3 days, you're at your apartment, fine. You know, I think there's just that small thing
A
that,
security, a feeling.
yeah,
yes,
where it isn't knowing what they're doing,
Just know they're
that
safe.
they're okay.
that, yes.
Okay, so let's take this back when we were that age.
Do we have to?
Oh, I didn't go anywhere.
There were no
so.
cell phones.
Oh,
They don't have
gosh.
cell phones.
See,
There was
it's
cell
not-
phones.
yeah.
Not even when my kids were even, that's developed so quickly.
Yeah.
That whole technology thing, I didn't even have that option of doing.
Were you
know,
very involved in school when they were in
no,
school?
no, I was working all the time.
Well, that's true.
I'm gonna, you know, I had to, I mean, I feel bad sometimes about that. I wasn't very involved at all. I don't know if they're boys, so I don't know if they wanted me to be or
Right.
not, but I just wasn't. I mean, I went to a couple Cub Scout meetings, over a long period of time.
Way to go.
And graduate, I would do that.
Right, you went to the event. Did you find that working kind of made it a little easier when they left? Because
Yes,
your daily
absolutely.
experience did change. If you're
I
stay-at-home
did,
mom and
right.
your kids
That's
leave,
totally right.
boom, you hit a wall.
Right.
But when you're just going to work, I mean, not just,
Yeah.
but when you're continuing
Yeah.
your routine.
If you're both working, like, because we lived in a big city and really we're gone often like 12 hours a day, and the kids would stay in a neighbor or whatever. So you don't have that much energy to be that way. And you don't have the technology to follow them everywhere. So the technology thing is a big switch, I think, and it's a real fast switch. Because we've only had iPhones for like 10 years or something, so there's been a real quick movement. Now when they went away, we had like primitive cell phones, but when they went away, maybe because they're boys, I wanted them to live their lives. I wanted them to make their way. And I will say this, and this sounds kind of, I don't know, cold or something, when your kids leave and when they do get jobs and when they are on their own, it's a big financial help too. Then you have money to travel and do some of the things you always wanted to do. You're not putting them through school, they're on their own.
And that's kind of the second stage
That's
of
the
that
second
gymnastics
stage,
world.
right.
We're
That's the
talking
second
about
stage.
they leave for school and then they leave your
Yes,
pocketbook.
they leave your pocketbook.
Yes.
And that's it. I thought that was pretty great.
Yeah, it's funny because it is great, but there's also, I think I talked about this on another podcast. I went through that phase, and I must really have some control issues because I was like, in my head, even though my daughter hadn't been at our house since, hadn't really lived at our house since her freshman year of college. Like, she was always somewhere else for the summers even, so I still thought in my head, well, I still had this control because we held the pocketbook. And then it was like, when she started her job, it was like, this is it. This is like, I have no control over this. And I didn't really, I kind of had planned when she went to college, even though I was a mess and cried and everything, but we were getting ready to move here. And so I knew I had all that stuff to look forward to and all that stuff to deal with the move here. But then this one, it was like, okay, she's going to be home for Christmas, and then I'm driving with her for North Carolina to her job, and bye. Okay, and that one I didn't prepare for. And she wasn't terribly far away because she had spent the summer in California, so that seemed a little better. But this was a control thing with me, and now it's like, I don't have any say in anything, which is so stupid of me.
But I think it's honest.
I
and
didn't
I think a lot of
really
people
when they
feel
were in
that
school
way.
anyway.
Right.
And
you felt like you did.
I felt like, and I'm from a really large family. I know.
Think?
You think? So everybody on the podcast knows I'm one of 12 kids, but and we're very close, and not many of us went very far away. My first sister to move out of the state. Well, some of them did, but I had one sister that graduated and she didn't get married right away, and she moved to another state a few states away. And it was like my mom's 10th kid or her 11th, or I don't know which number.
You're
What
the
number are you,
11th.
Susan? She's number 9. Susan, it's you, Susan. It's number 9. When Susan moved, and she and Mom weren't particularly close at the time, oh my gosh, my mother's heart just sank. She worried about her constantly. And my other siblings were married. If they had moved out of state, they at least had a husband. And it's like I saw this whole change I'd never seen in my life because she was on her own and she had moved away. And they got really close after that. But that was just that large family thing. And then I got married, and when I moved, I think she felt I was a little safer because I was married before I moved far away. And I think my mother, that was a safety issue. And then we go back to, how do you keep track? I'm so glad she didn't know where I was.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly.
I know.
So
I know.
that's why
Right.
I brought it up.
She
Turn
had-
the
that's valid,
tables.
right.
Oh.
Why are we hovering over these adult children?
We're not
when
hovering.
Because I know
would
what
wanna
I
be
did.
hovered. Well, I understand you want to know where they
Yeah,
are.
but I don't think it's hovering. So, as my friends know, I know too much about criminal behavior.
True crime.
But
Oh,
in
yeah.
the 80s, our crime issues were enormous, and it could have been solved with cell phones. They all say that, you know. But since technology has come in, the good part is that kind of stuff has been deterred. Although now we have 4 times as many in the last 5 to 10 years missing women due to sex trafficking.
Oh, I get that.
Which is
I get that.
Yeah, so
But at
I
some
think
point-
there's no hovering when.
Well, but at some point, so now they're 30 and they're single. Now they're 35 and they're single. I mean, they have to learn to deal with things themselves.
Oh, and she doesn't.
And they
I
will.
just
They
worry
do.
anyway.
They
do.
Right.
They
I
shop,
think it's
they go
they
here,
keep
they
moving.
do.
It's just for our
And it's just
mental
something,
health.
yeah.
We need to know they're okay. Like,
Yeah.
You know, it's not keeping them. I don't want you to do this because it's not safe.
Right.
It's more like just let me.
We
know.
don't even know what they're doing.
No, I mean,
Like
I
where you
can't.
are.
I
Yeah.
can't prevent. I don't prevent my
No.
children from doing stuff. My daughter just booked a trip to Japan, and she's going to go to Japan
And
this
that's
summer.
great.
And
Good.
that's
Good
great.
for
And
her.
I'm
That's great.
happy for her. Of course, I'm going to worry about her, but she's.
Right.
I'm happy
Oh,
for her.
Japan has really low crime.
Okay.
Hardly any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what a great
So much
experience
Yeah.
for
So
her.
I
Don't even get
don't
started on that one.
stop what they're going to do. It's just, I think it's a safety
Well,
thing.
you can't, really.
I can't stop
That's
what
what
they're
you
doing.
realize
Yeah.
finally. You can't stop them.
But
They're gonna
I
do what they wanna
do.
do.
I do think about I remember my mother being so worried. You said your daughter went to IU. My husband went to IU, and I went to UK, University of Kentucky. So that was about 3 hours away, and we were dating in college. And I would want to go see him, or he'd come and see me, and I would drive. And my mother, she was so worried. She's like, they're going to see that blonde hair, and they're going to force you off the road. Force me off the road. And my friend, she used to say her mother would always, which I do now, I lock the doors immediately when I get in the car. She goes, well, my mom locks the doors on the interstate. Like, what, are they going to jump on my car, in my car when I'm driving?
Right.
I said, well, they're going to force you off the road and then jump in your car. But I would just go anyway. I would just go, and I was on her
Right.
bed,
Right.
and I would go and
Right.
see
That's what they
John.
do.
But she didn't
That's
know.
what, exactly what
She
they
That's
do.
what they
sometimes
do.
she
That's what
did,
they
and
do.
sometimes she didn't know. And I got in an airplane one time, a small airplane with somebody that said they had their pilot's license. And flew
See, these
around
are things that
Lexington.
parents don't want to
And
know.
I don't, yeah, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, and I'm like, don't ever get in an airplane with some guy doing lights at a fraternity party for the band. Don't do that.
Oh my
But I
gosh.
lived. I'm still here. We didn't crash. But,
Oh, yeah, you never.
but
That was
things
a pretty good story.
yeah.
You don't need to your parents didn't need to know that you were.
They
doing
No.
they don't, and they have passed on, and they never knew. So,
So this is okay
so
to
this is
share
okay
now.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
with Nancy, we've talked about once the kids are off the payroll and you have this sense of kind of independence financially and physically.
But I still have a great relationship with them.
No, but I'm saying now you had a little bit of playroom. What did you do? Did you go on vacations? Did you?
Well, I was still working. I didn't retire until like 8 years, 10 years, 8 years after they left, or 9 years. So I just kept working and working more and harder, and each of us traveled for our jobs. So I just kept up that. But we would go on vacation. It's just then when you quit working, that's when you have that luxury. When you're working, all the time, you don't have that
you
luxury.
said vacation.
Yeah, vacation. You just have vacation, which you divide between your family, and we would have our kids come. So we've always maintained a really close relationship. I think a big part of it is I had 2 boys, and I think maybe it would be different if I had girls. And I also think it has to do with how you were raised.
Right.
I was raised with kind of a bigger family. 5 kids, but my parents were like, go, 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 don't come back, go. But we had a great family. I loved them. They loved me. So it was just a different style. They couldn't hover. They both were working too, and they had a whole bunch of kids. So it also has to do with the way I think you were raised.
Yeah, it does.
True.
To
I
some
think I agree
extent.
with you on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting to me
the
that
personality,
right.
yeah.
It's so interesting to me that Jeanne was had this whole transition of not only being an empty nester, but kind of having to find out who you were
I did.
and realizing that what you thought you'd never be able to do, which is let the girls go a little bit, you were able to do once you figured out what made you happy at that point. What did you find? Was it working? Was it
Work was definitely my saving grace.
Wow.
Yeah, work was my I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do, and I only work part-time, so that's great. And it gives me time to do other things. So yeah, working, but also just working on myself. Like after my divorce, I didn't date for at least 2 years because first of all, I wasn't me. I wasn't in any shape to. So I had to figure out who I am, what I want, where I'm going. You know, do I stay here? All that good stuff, and did a lot of internal searching. And on the way, now my kids are gone. Well, one lived in town, and one was at school. But there wasn't anybody, you know, for me to confer with or to help me or play off of what do you think of this. It was just an all internal thing. So which is why I kind of mapped out this plan, which is so not me. I'm really kind of a last minute Charlie kind of person. But I needed to. And work was my saving grace when the kids left. It just was. And then moving here was great. And then it was a step at a time, just a step at a time. And I had so much on my shoulders, although I love my daughters, I care about my daughters, and certainly, I want to know what they're up to or whatever.
Right.
But it wasn't a focal point because I had to take care of me. You know, who's gonna fix this and how's this gonna happen? Everything was on me. So, and which is fine, it just made me stronger. And it's great. But so my focus was more on my living and how am I gonna succeed and how am I gonna exist. And I didn't really like sit there and go, oh, I wanna talk to not that I didn't, but if that makes any sense. The focus
No,
wasn't
absolutely,
there.
because you had to deal with how am I going to function in the world very quickly right after being an empty nester.
Right.
So it was kind of like a double whammy.
How am I gonna make it?
Yeah, exactly.
How am I gonna make it?
Are you looking forward to kind of dating your husband again? Or?
We're fortunate that we are together all day long because he works at home, I mostly work at home, we're together all day, and we do date nights. So we're in a different position that we're fortunate. But we'll be able to travel more for sure. And anytime we say we're traveling, you know, oh, we're gonna go here or there, my husband forgets to tell the daughter, but you're not included. So she thinks she's going, and then we're like, no.
Sorry.
So that we won't have to do because we'll just be paying for two, which is so much cheaper.
a lot less.
I will say,
Yes.
I don't know, when our boys were teenagers, we did take them on some nice vacations, and they were horrible. So that helps you too.
because they were horrible vacations.
No, they were the boys.
They were teenagers.
Because they're teenage boys, that's their job.
Right.
And what my pediatrician said, they are trying to separate from you.
Yeah.
And they will act like that's part of how they're separating. And they also said, like the person they're the closest to, that's who they will be the meanest to.
Right.
So you go through that a couple times, and then you're just so thankful that they're not on your new vacations.
Well,
When they're teenage, you know, now it might be totally different because
Yeah.
they're much more mature. But some of those times were pretty horrible, but that helps you separate.
Right.
Now, all you guys, I know you didn't have kids like that, but I had kids.
Well, everyone has their own unique experience.
My
And we
kids.
had to survive teenage girls.
Yeah, teenage girls are different too.
God,
Awful.
teenage girls.
Awful.
Right.
I wanted to avoid that.
Yeah, and
I did.
Yeah,
I
I
wanted
wanted a girl, but anyway. So I think it's just different for everybody.
Right,
But I
exactly.
do think
Individual
part of
experience.
their job at some point that's part of their job is to separate from you.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to be here forever. We're going
Right.
to die.
Thank you. On that
yourself.
we're back to the mortality.
And to that point, though, I think my youngest daughter and I, well, my oldest too, but especially my youngest one and I were very close. And she was very dependent on me. She had some medical issues. So very tight. I was very like, okay, this is what we're going to do next. This is how we're going to handle this. It was important for me to go figure it out.
Yeah.
Do you need to go to the doctor? Call the doctor.
Right.
Do you need to do this? You do it. So just... You know, I can't, oh, you're sick, well, have you called the doctor? I'll call for you, or I'll do it. you figure it out, you do it. So I think that's good.
And you're not allowed to do it once they're 18
Once they're
anyway.
18.
Right. No,
And
Unless
that's-
there's a form.
And you
Unless
can't
they
sign
say
up unless you sign a form.
it's time for you to do that. And it's, you know, it's good for them. Mine worked both since they were 15, and that helps them too. They make their own decisions, they get their own money, they have to save their own money, they spend their own money, and that helps you to go, that's your life that I don't know everything you're spending, I don't know. Not in control,
Right.
which
Yeah.
And that's that piece, but that's that piece of separation, like they're starting to pull away a
Right,
little bit.
right.
And it's natural, it's normal, it's just, it's hard on the parents. That doesn't mean, you know, because we were talking to the coach about feeling selfish when you are sad about those things. And it's not keeping your child from accomplishing any of the things that they're
Right.
accomplishing. And you're certainly not telling your child, oh my God, I can't believe you're getting independent. Like, you're like, yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But in those quiet moments when you're alone, it's okay to
Sure.
be sad.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel like this chapter's starting.
I know.
And to look forward, but again, at the same time, to look forward
forward.
to things that are coming your way. Because one of the reasons why we started this podcast was there is just an age range of women who are not quite retired. Some are, but not all. But they're kind of done with raising their children, and they have so much to offer this world. But it seems
True,
like
that's true.
it's we have to change the narrative on that time of life because a lot of women don't know what to do with themselves. They're like, okay, I'm not a mom anymore. I'm not a retired. What do I want to do with my life? And it's okay to say that, and it's okay to kind of figure that out in a time where you don't really care so much about failing or
You
trying
have more
again.
freedom to fail.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a privilege. It's kind of a freedom to say, okay, if this doesn't work, I'll do something else.
Right.
And
So that's kind of why we wanted to
Right.
even start the podcast, was to
Yeah.
change the narrative on that stage of life and to hear from women saying, no, this is kind of cool. Like empty nesting is not all bad. There's always going to be times where you miss them and you're melancholy, like you said, and it's okay. But there's also some
Oh, there is a lot. Like
stuff.
John and I cannot wait for him to retire so that
Yeah,
he
that
will
is
have more. We love to travel, so we've alreys talked. We've already talked about after we did the podcast with Will talking about vacations. And
Check
I
that
said,
one out. It's all
yes,
about travel.
I would really like to do an around the world cruise. I really would. And I said, when you retire, I really want to do that. And then I was just thinking too while we were talking about when I did move here, so it's been about 5 years, and I knew things were going to be very different. I wasn't working anymore. I didn't have my children to meet people, you know, through school or anything like that. And just, I remember I joined some different little groups. Some I still do, some I don't. But I just tried them out just to see if they were for me or not for me. I moved to this neighborhood that is very social and has lots of offers quite a bit. So I did start playing. I played tennis in high school, so I started playing in the tennis league here. And I'm on a team, and it's great. And, you know, I have people that I can do stuff with there. At the bookstore where Karen works at Bound, they have great book clubs. We have a lot of fun in those. So there's just lots of different, and I don't even know how I met Nancy, but I did. I can't remember.
You met Nancy through Karen.
Through Karen?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And I
And
was sitting there
Jeanne through
thinking,
me.
yeah, and I was just thinking, how did I know? I feel like I've known Nancy for quite a while. I do. And I
I know
think
my sister now.
I know your
Yeah.
sister
Who
looks
looks
exactly
exactly
like
like
her.
you.
Yes, exactly. And so it's been a very, it's a great neighborhood for that.
It is.
But so you know, there are things that I do during the day, and there are times there were great things like when they did leave. I was like, oh, I don't have to run the dishwasher every day. Oh my gosh, the laundry is all caught up, and I watch whatever I want on TV and do whatever I want. So there's definitely positives. Like I can do and go and volunteer and be involved with whatever I want and not feel like I have this obligation to get back home so quickly. So I'm really not a sad person.
No, you're not.
I'm not.
Not
I
at
just
all.
would really, maybe I wish they were slightly closer so I could
Yeah,
drop
that
in
makes a
and see them
difference, that
Right.
makes a
more often.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think all of us were different ages, different
Yeah.
backgrounds, different times of the empty nest, but fortunately all of us had a bit of a plan. And
which is a theme.
if
Totally,
you
yeah.
are kids only, when they leave, you will emotionally hit a wall.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's great to have, something else that is you. Like you were saying, you have to have you be showing up, or once they leave, you won't have anybody.
That's right.
You won't have
Right.
you
It's
yet.
kind of redefining of yourself. You're no
Right.
longer the mommy, you're you
Gloria.
again. You're,
Yeah.
you're
And
Jeanne.
we've talked about the fact that there have been, before you had kids, you had dreams and aspirations that maybe just got put on the back burner because the kids were your priority, happily so. But it's okay to look back and say, am I still even interested? Like you said, like tennis or things like that. They don't have to be these huge life-altering decisions. They can be very small things that you put in place that give you some value and something to look forward to. And I would say along those lines, if you are an almost empty nester, but if you are talking to people about empty nesting, what would be kind of the advice you would give them to right before they go, like right when they're going through this experience? What kind of advice would you say to them? Like for me, I would say they come back.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's okay to be sad and still have something to look forward to tomorrow. Or it's okay to go to the movies by yourself. It's okay to make some new friends. And we've also talked about the fact that it's hard to make friends when you're getting older.
It is.
So put yourself out there. Go to
So-
meetups.com.
Move here. No,
Exactly. We'll have all the
no, they're
addresses.
like, there's no more
But
room.
like, what would be your suggestion for people that are starting that empty nest journey?
Just like think about it. I mean, well, maybe I'm different too. I never wanted to have kids. Now I'm glad I was a mother and I love my kids, and they were just a year apart. So I went. I enjoyed a lot of it. A lot of it I felt was very hard for me personally. I think being a mother is really difficult, and maybe it has to do with. I mean, I have wonderful kids, and they grew up to be wonderful people. So I like to think that I did something right spending that time. But I guess I just kept wanting to look at, like, they're going out in the world. They're going to go to school, or they're going to get a job, and they're going to get married, and they're going to have a kid, and they have all this great thing, all these great things in front of them. At the same time, maybe it is a little easier for me. Just what you were saying too. You don't have to go home and cook dinner after you. So I think it's different for everybody. But since I didn't stay at home with them very briefly when they were just first born. That it was kind of just a different deal. And I think it's also generational. I think there's a lot of generational differences. Like I'm a boomer and very much in the women's movement. And, your children, where it's fine to have children, but they're not supposed to be your whole life.
Right.
So I was really influenced by that. So, I mean, all the things everyone else is saying, just basically you have a lot of time ahead of you. That's the other thing.
And
You
that's
have
the
a
whole
ton
thing.
of time ahead of you.
You are still young.
Yes,
you still
you
have
have a
so
lot
much
of time.
experience
Yes.
in the world, and it's okay to go out and find that.
Yes.
It's okay to go do that.
Absolutely.
You don't have to say, I think certain generations were like, okay, well now I'll just wait to become a grandmother. You know what I mean? Like that was the next
Right.
stage. And
Although-
it's not.
But it is pretty good.
No, I've heard it's amazing.
It's
I know
amazing.
I've heard it's amazing.
It's much
But my
better than
point,
being a
like,
mom.
back then there was that
for that.
transition of, okay, you're not a mom, you're always a mom.
You're always a mom.
But you're not a daily take them to school,
Right, yes.
to go to all that. And you're not a grandmother yet. What do you do in that in between? And now women are working, women are traveling, women are finding themselves again.
I think you have to embrace this newfound freedom. I mean, really embrace it. I used to get up as all you did, get up at 5:30, 5:45 in the morning, and you're getting them up, and you're making breakfast, and they're at the bus, and they're at the homework, and da da da. But that routine is now gone, and it's like, whew, thank goodness, because I hate getting up that early. So just carving out for you what's important to you, and if you feel sad, accept the sadness,
right.
deal with the sadness, have a pity party that day, and call them up or whatever, and then move on. And know that you've done your job and you've done a great job. And when I hear my kids say something back to them that I taught them as kids, I just go, oh my God.
They absorb that.
Yeah, so I think that's real important. You just have to embrace this newfound freedom.
Okay. And what about you, Karen? What are you looking forward to? Or
Yeah. I'm looking forward to my kids not remembering that I didn't get up and make their breakfast. I mean, they had done stuff for themselves and maybe now I feel neglectful. But
No.
I think it's
Wonderful
in
daughters.
line with anything that when you were raising your kids, because I didn't want to have kids either, and
Yeah.
I loved the kids I had, but it was
Yes.
difficult when they were
It's
younger.
difficult.
And I always had my mind going, I'm being with them, but I also really want to be doing this.
Mhm.
And when I'm doing that, I
Yes.
really need
I-
and want to be
yeah.
here.
Being torn like
Right.
that.
And now is the time to just be like, guess what? What was that thing
Go back
that
and
you
remember.
wanted to do and spend time doing, and go ahead and do that full force now.
I agree.
Which is great. What about you, Bridgett?
Well, yeah, I was just
A little bit of all of
advice.
that.
I was
say
sitting
all
there
of
and I
this
was
is great
thinking about
advice.
when Karen was saying, I would feel so torn. Like I really wanted to take up something or do something the whole time. I was doing that, I was thinking about, I need to get back home. I need to get back home to my kids. Or if I had a sitter or even going out to dinner, I felt torn. So I do think definitely having a plan, just a plan or something to do, especially when you first deal with it, but just to find things to do. And I know some people are more introverted than other people, and that might be hard for them to do. But even if it's a solitary hobby or something that you
Reading.
like,
Just going back to
love to
reading.
read.
Or-
Yeah, or just anything that you like to do or listen to. Music makes me so happy. I'm a horrible singer, so not singing the music by myself, I will sing by myself. But listening to music can really brighten up my mood if I'm feeling down or whatever.
Right.
And that was another thing with the freedom when we moved here, and there's so many concerts and so many
much
people
music.
that come here. It was like, hey, we can go see this person on a school night, and I don't have to get up and go teach
Yeah, 'cause
tomorrow.
there's no
and,
school.
and yeah, and John, you don't have to you have to go to work, but you don't have to punch a clock. So
Right.
let's go see that. So those kinds of things are great. So just to go and find things to do.
I think it's all great advice, and I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation.
Did you have any advice, Colleen?
I did before they come back.
yeah.
I would say along those lines, I kind of have the reverse experience. I was a working full-time attorney.
Right.
I gave birth 3 days after I was in court. I mean, it was like I was going and going, but I never had that feeling of fulfillment in my job. I never looked forward to going to court. I never looked forward to going to, my job. I did it, but as soon as I gave birth to that child, it was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. For me, it was just reverse.
Right.
And I think it's different for every
That's okay.
person, like
Yeah,
we're
it is.
saying. So now I'm kind of at that point going, I just want that charge. Like, let me find some things that give me that passion, that charge. And definitely this podcast has been a great, we wouldn't even be doing this podcast but
If it weren't for
Karen.
Karen.
Yes.
He's a podcaster in our
Send
office.
I'll give you a portion of the 8 cents that we
Right,
made.
exactly. But it's true. There's always just having lunch. We went to lunch and we started talking about it. Next thing you knew, we were starting a podcast. There's always something out there. Like you don't have to feel like this is the end of anything because there's always something else.
And you've got a long time to live.
Exactly.
You do.
Yes. God willing,
Yes.
we all have a
We
long.
do, yes.
My grandmothers lived to 100, 2 of them.
Wow.
So that's what
So Nancy will be here for a long
So
time.
Nancy will be a guest very often.
Yes. A long time.
But thank you so much for listening.
Thank
We hope
you.
enjoyed it. This is the first one of hopefully many. We will be talking about menopause and perimenopause and probably having them on again and again because you guys were great.
Yes,
I mean,
you are. Thank you
what
so much.
a wonderful
Yeah.
conversation. So thank you all so much for being here.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And
Yeah.
until next time, bye guys.
Bye.
Bye.